Are agents ready for a buyer's market?
That's the real big question right now. We're seeing things shift, but we still see a lot of real estate professionals that are kind of acting like nothing new is going on. So, my name is Alan Rich. I'm the managing broker here at Max One Realtor and Realtor Partners.
My name is Bean Richardson. I'm the compliance broker for Maximum One Realty and Realtor Partners.
And so, we want to talk about buyers in particular, but from several different aspects. One, what do our buyers look like today? Like what makes them different than in past years, that kind of stuff. And then also, how are we interacting with them? What are our expectations? What are we seeing in the marketplace? All that kind of thing. So overall, when you first start talking about buyers, right? Everybody's going to immediately jump into, well, what's happening with first time buyer market? And the first time buyer market is really pretty depressed if we're being real honest with you. Like in that buyer group, first time buyers are only making up around 24-25% of the market right now. So only 1 out of 4 buyers are first time buyers. Now, historically, that number's been as high as 50%.
Which is huge.
Yeah. And so roughly double where it is right now. But we understand that that is being driven by affordability. It all really does come down to affordability. What we are seeing is we're seeing a lot of folks that are in the buyer's market now are baby boomers or Gen Xers, folks that have a lot more equity. So when first of all, when you're talking buyers, just understand like we do have first time buyers. They're not in our market. It's not that they aren't
They're not as
engaged.
prevalent as it used to be.
Right. So even though first time buyer lags, you also have to understand there is a ton of pent up demand. Up to now, we've seen where our first time buyers are really holding off. But even like this week, we've seen a pretty big jump in interest rates. Interest rates are down for like the last 5-6 weeks in a row, and we just went back. Some of the weekly numbers came in under 6.5 kind of thing. So we're seeing a lot less pressure or less pressure than we have seen on interest rates. We're seeing a lot more inventory. I guess what I'm saying is, even though when you look at those numbers that say, all right, first time buyers make up 24%, normally it's double that. There is a lot of folks sitting on the sidelines right now, and we should be reaching out and engaging with them about what's really happening in our marketplace, that kind of thing. So even though we may not see as many first time buyers in the market,
You still have buyers.
we're gonna be seeing them, right? Now, in talking about especially our Gen Z and our millennials, are they ready to buy right now? Well, there's some new information out there about debt and savings and that kind of stuff, and so we're just gonna like bring you up to speed here. First of all, especially for our younger home buyers, they're carrying, when it comes to debt, the most common debt for them is not what you might think. And everyone tends to think that it's student loans.
Yeah, student loan, but it's actually credit cards.
Credit cards are the number one thing. Student loans only about 15% of our first time buyers and millennial and gen, those kind of things actually have student loans. Car loans come in just underneath it. Actually, student loans did beat car loans by
just smidgen.
But yeah, exactly. Now, one thing that is a little concerning is nearly 20%, like 18 point something percent of our younger buyers have no emergency savings. And that's one of those things that, especially being a homeowner, like you have to save for your down payment. And so that is something that our younger buyers, that we need to be instructing our buyers about, that, the down payment, those kind of things, that comes from having a savings on there.
And what's stressful too is that when we say no emergency saving, we're talking about 24% have less than $1,000 in savings. So that is, if your HVAC breakdown or something unfortunate happened, it takes more than just $1,000 anymore these days to get those things repaired back to the condition it needs to be.
Well, yeah, because for these buyers, they are also like especially for our first time buyers, they are feeling just a lot of financial stress. These generations overall, they're just very stressed financially. Like if you just ask them overall, like how stressed are you financially? 1 out of 4 says that they're like chewing on the fingernails, super stressed.
And about 40% is that they're slightly stressed, but they have a plan. Yeah. But sometimes, like I said, is still somewhat stressed.
Only about 10% are not stressed at all, or just no stress. And I get that. There's a lot of angst and things going on. So even though they're stressed, even though there's all these things going on, like what are their, well, like what's their thought process when it comes to buying? And that's where really good news, right? 60% of our buyer, I mean of our potential buyers, believe it is an attainable goal to own a home. They know that wealth creation in the United States comes from homeownership. They're very understandable on there. Now, 40% don't think that that's a possibility, and me, for us personally, like that hurts my heart a little bit, because that is where wealth, that's where communities come from, is from home ownership. Large rental neighborhoods and these kind of things. I'm not knocking rentals, but at the end of the day, good solid communities, um, overall enjoyment of life comes from owning your own home, and as well as like generational wealth comes from owning your own home.
So for those 60%, I believe that the home is attainable. What they're doing right now is that they're looking at alternative strategy. What that means is that they're looking at potentially fixer uppers, or about 42% of them, and about 21% are looking at co-buying with a good friend of ours, or a good friend of theirs, excuse me, or someone that's near and dear to them.
House hacking, that kind of thing.
And so that's what they're doing.
So now, of that same group, only about 20% think that now is a good time to buy. And that's very concerning for us, because like we've seen this shift happen over the last
few months.
I mean, especially since the beginning of the year.
It's been gradually over the last year.
But right now we're seeing interest rates that are softening, and we're seeing more inventory. Like if you looked at where we were like summer of 21 or in 22, right? We had people lining up to buy homes. And we would have an open house, have 50, 75 people at an open house down there. We were all masked up, but we were coming, and we saw a lot of multiple offers on properties, all these kind of things happening. Well, there's been a pretty drastic shift in inventory this year. Here in Georgia, we're up over 30% this year versus last year. Now, we're still not higher than we were pre-COVID, but we are moving rapidly, and that's changing that buyer numbers around, because when you have very low supply and everyone wants to buy it, that drives prices up. We're seeing where prices are really, really flat. And in some places, it's a drop of 1% to 2%, right? We're seeing so when I see that only 20% believe that it's a good time, that's not based on what we're really seeing in the marketplace. That's based on people's feelings, and like trust in the overall market, feelings about government. There's a lot of things going on. But at the end of the day, it really is a much better time to buy than we've seen since COVID, honestly.
And honestly, if you want to obtain some business, what we're seeing right now is that the trust and confidence that the buyer has in real estate or loan officers are all-time low. So this is where you actually probably need to do more first-time home buyer seminar. One, to educate the buyers, let them know what the market's doing. What can you do with loans? What do you need to save? I think the more power the buyer has about what their alternative strategies may be, you're going to have more followers.
Yeah, we have some very, like some of the information that they're telling us, it almost doesn't add up, but I do understand. And what we mean by that is right now, there is a lot of distrust kind of across housing and finance, right? So when it comes to both millennials and our Gen Z buyers, when it comes, 43% distrust banks, 48% distrust credit unions, 20% distrust loan officers, and drum roll,
32% do not trust real estate
32 agents. To 40% of Gen Z don't trust real estate agents. And so if you as a real estate professional are not working on relationships, showing your heart, showing that you care about your clients, if someone talks to you and they can just smell the commission breath on you, right? Like that's going to be a real big negative for you. This is a relationship business. And And like right now, there is a lot of distrust for real estate professionals.
Internet has a lot of information. It's the beauty of the internet, but it also has a lot of misinformation. So, and sometimes we're not always projecting the best light in the media overall. Now, so this is where, like Alan said, you really need to build that trust and confidence with the millennial and Gen Z. Either through the relationship, if you're an older agent, you can do it through your friendship with their parents. And if nothing else, go to some of Gen Z and millennial function and just be there.
Now, in direct contrast to the data that we just shared with you, they asked this same group, same big group, said, you know what, but if you were going to buy a house today,
who will you turn to?
Yeah. And guess who's number one?
Realtors.
Bingo, 40 to 38% of folks are going to come to us. So it's on one hand, we've got a lot of distrust. On the other, we're the number one source of information. So we keep saying it, but like double down on relationships. This is a relationship business. It really is. And so, after us, it comes down to
financial advisors.
Yep. Banks and then loan officers are the ones in there. But what's really, really interesting is that then they said, okay, well, but who do you turn to for guidance?
And initial guidance.
Yeah, like when you're looking for financial information, home buyer education, guess where they're getting all their information right now?
YouTube.
Social media. I mean, like across social media. When it says, roughly, 70% are looking at YouTube. Almost like 46% are on Facebook. 46% on Instagram, TikTok, that kind of stuff. And so on one hand, it's like parts of me are like discouraged, right? Let's just be honest, right? It's one of those where it's kind of like, my goodness, why are they going to YouTube? Why are they going to Facebook and that kind of stuff? And then it kind of hit me. Well, guess where we need to be? YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. We should be those voices of reason. That we should be the ones providing guidance and education on these platforms because they're turning here for
learn and resources. So if you think about it, back in my day, we didn't have all these social media. But this is the norm for the millennial and Gen Zs. This is where they go and kind of virtually play and kind of virtually learn. And so we need to be in a platform where they are if you're looking at connecting with them.
Well, and let's just be brutally honest. Like what we're doing today here, this is going to be on YouTube. This is going on Facebook. It's going to be like we're in the same place because we are here to educate, guide, advise in the exact same way. What we're trying to do with real estate professionals is what you really want to be doing with your buyers. And so like we don't like wake up and think, oh, can't wait to do video today. We do enjoy doing video. I mean, it's not a bad thing, but like it becomes part of something you need to do. You can really incorporate this to really try and assist and help our buyers to really jump out into the market out there. Because we do have a lot of misconceptions that we need to help folks understand, right?
And one of them is that what Gen Z and millennial think they need for down payment. So right now they think they need minimum 10% in order to buy a home.
Well, not just 70% of all Americans think that they need 10%. Now, 30% think that they need 10 to 14%, right? Another 12% think they need up to 20. And then 1 out of 4 buyers thinks that they need 20% or more down. And honestly, especially for your first-time buyers, the average is 6%. So, there is a pretty big disconnect there that we need to kind of do that.
Well, it's not necessarily disconnect. Well, it's misinformation.
Yeah.
So it's not a disconnect. And this is where you as a real estate professional can come in and basically educate your sphere and your influences and let them know this is not the way. And let me show you how we can get you to where you need to be.
Yeah. One other area where we really need to help educate our buyers right now is that the whole buyer-seller dynamic has kind of flipped on its head right now, right? A year ago versus now, a year ago, we still had a lot more buyers than we have sellers. Now we have more sellers than we have buyers.
Yep.
So that dynamic has shifted, right? And so that's why we're seeing a lot more power on the buy side right now, which is a great place for our buyers to be. And I'm afraid some are kind of missing out of it because what does that dynamic shift mean? Well, first of all, price reductions. For the last several years, we had here in Georgia over 50% property value appreciation over the last 5 years. Well, right now that appreciation is really pretty flat. It's really, I mean, we're not seeing. I don't mean to imply anything about a crash or drops or anything like that. It's just really flat, right? Because we're seeing a lot more inventory on hand right now. But when you have more inventory come on hand, and it sits there for a while, what does sellers start doing?
Price reduction.
They drop the price. So we're seeing more price reductions right now. Overall, here in Georgia, 1 out of 4 listings has had a price reduction already. So that's a pretty significant. Now, in addition, but see, like for our sellers, the sellers don't just drop prices, right? They sweeten, they want to throw a little bit more into the pot, right? Because they're trying to attract more buyers. And so not only are we seeing price reductions, we're seeing overall seller concessions. We're seeing sellers offering to buy down rates. Builders are doing the same exact thing with new construction. We're seeing where sellers are much more open to making repairs. Sellers are much more open to closing costs. All these different kind of things, home warranties. I mean, like the list just kind of goes on and on. So we are seeing a lot more going on with, like concessions and those kind of things. I mean, right now, one area that we think that as a real estate professional here in Georgia, right, we know that renters is a place where a lot of potential buyers really are like living right now. And so we went ahead and pulled the 10 Atlanta suburbs. Can you help me out?
It's okay. 10 Atlanta suburbs that currently has the highest rental rate.
And some of them were staggering to me. I had no idea that like Clarkston, Georgia, for example, 83% of people in Clarkston rent. College Park, 77% rent. Vinings, 67% rent. Fair Oaks, Forest Park, over 60%. Carrollton, 61%. Chamblee, another 60%. Everything else is over 60%. Griffin, Monroe, Conyers. Those are your top 10 communities that have the highest share of renters. Therefore, just think through this whole thing. If that's where more renters live, where's a great place to find folks who are tired of living the rental rat race, right? We think that it's just one place where we definitely have a real opportunity to help some folks in there. One other thing that we want to strongly encourage you with, real estate professionals when working with your buyers is
inspections.
Well, and why are home inspections so important?
Well, Georgia is buyer beware state. So if a buyer refuses to do a home inspection, they get exactly what they have and see. And unfortunately, not everybody is up to date on codes and enforcement. And some of the things can be minor and some of the things can be major. So the reason why we want to do home inspections, make sure whether or not if the imperfection is minor or the imperfection is really, really huge.
Yeah, but for us at the brokerage level, we see more deals die from the home inspection. And I'm not saying that we're here to kind of manipulate or talk someone into keeping a house that they don't want. What we're saying is that, like, first of all, as a real estate professional, should you go on the home inspection with your buyer? 100%. Do you need to be there when the home? I mean, you don't have to be there through the entire thing necessarily, but you do need to be there while your buyer is there, and especially to go over the report with the inspector, because some inspectors are going to scare the daylights out of your clients, right? And I don't mean that we have some amazing inspectors. I'm not throwing shade at inspectors. I'm just saying, if you're not there, they can get really, really apprehensive, right? Some folks think that you're going to get a home inspection and it is just, oh, here's one item on it. that's not a home inspection. Most of these things have 50, 60 items on there.
Well,
but there are going to be some that are, like some of it's written in red, like Jesus wrote it. The other parts are going to be just FYI kind of thing, right?
So when he said 50, 60 item, meaning that these are maintenance FYI, here is your gas shut off. Here's your water line coming in. Some of those are just FYI, and some of those are said, this not currently the code, but at the time the property is built, it was the code.
But like if you see a big report, let your buyers know that shouldn't that shouldn't scare you, right? They need to expect some imperfections. If you're buying a new home, there's going to be a list of things that needs to happen. Even day one moving in, there's going to be some things. Mm-hmm. We need to help our buyers understand sometimes it's not that big a deal. Some things are just not that big a deal. Some things can be fixed. And if it can't be fixed, those are the deal breakers. That's what we're looking for, deal breakers that will help that helps our buyer to make that decision of, you know what, this is too much for me. I can't live with that kind of thing. It is the cheapest insurance that they're going to get. But really the bottom line here is if you'll show up and not panic, if instead you'll just be the one who understands and carries it through and negotiate.
If you don't understand it, while you have the inspector there, ask them to educate you. And some of the inspection company do have recommended affiliates that take care of these issues. And so that's a good way for you as an agent to leverage what the repaired expenses may be.
So to wrap up here with our, talking about our buyers and all that kind of stuff, remember that for your buyers right now, it's all coming down to affordability. Mm-hmm. Our buyers are being way more creative about finding the right home for them. Make sure that we aren't, deciding for them what is a starter home, because we're seeing a lot of folks looking at townhomes, looking at condos, a lot of folks looking at new construction that maybe wouldn't be. So be very open-minded in assisting your clients. We also need to help them understand their negotiation power. There is a shift going on, and our sellers are seeing it, and buyers are starting to see it. So it's one of those where our buyers have a lot more negotiation power. Don't go crazy kind of thing. It's not that. We are much more in a much more balanced market right now, but it's not hardcore buyer's market where they can just dictate all the terms, but they can dictate a lot more than they could in the past, right? And then you're going to keep seeing mortgage rates kind of move, bounce, that kind of stuff. We've seen some nice drops here recently, but then we saw inflation kind of bounce up a little bit. So that may affect us there. So just look for it to keep moving forward, but don't let that get you freaked out.
And last, to keep an eye on property that may be on the market for a while. And the reason being is that the seller may have listed really, really, really high, and now
optimistically,
yes. And then now they're down to where the market will bear. So just because they're on the market for a long time doesn't mean there's a material defects. It
Great
just
advice.
Means that it took the seller this long to realize this is the price point we have to be in if we want to sell a house, because that's all the market can bear at this time.
Have a great week.
Thank y'all for coming in and
Bye,
listening to us.
Yep.